All right, so I kind of had a hard time figuring out where to start with this, because for those of you who don't know Brian, there's a lot to know about Brian, but I figured I'd kind of start from the beginning. So I first met Brian when we started veterinary school together, which was approximately 6 years ago. And the first thing I remember about him, we're in orientation, and there's this one kid sitting in the back of the room, the grocery bag full of candy, and every 30 seconds you hear candy wrappers just opening nonstop. But also with Brian's generosity, he would also share this candy with everyone, so that kind of goes to speak with him. So as time progressed, we became better and better friends. In our first year of school, with a lot of my encouragement, he actually developed a little bit of an obsession with my friend, and actually now wife, Lindsay. Probably encouraged him a little bit too much, and that was a little evident when on Valentine's Day, he decided to give her a t-shirt that had his face on it, surrounded by hearts. He also later got this little toy, I think it was from one of his cereal boxes, and eventually named it Baby Toncray. A little combination of their last two names together. And then, at least this obsession died, and eventually Tally replaced that. So as far as I know, and apparently some things from the ceremony I learned today were different about when they actually started dating. But again, as far as I know, kind of the first time I remember them together was when a bunch of us, after school, were all hanging out at this Corvallis landmark. Kind of a sketchy bar known as the Peacock, for those of you who know Corvallis. So we were kind of hanging out, enjoying drinks, talking, just having a good time, which you normally would at a bar. And then I kind of noticed Brian's talking to this one girl who I have no idea who she is. And kind of my first thought was, who is this poor girl? And Brian has been harassing her for a long time. But as the night went on, I kind of kept looking at them, and I could just see in Tally's eyes, she was just enamored with everything that he said. And for those of you that know Brian, he can talk for a long time without stopping. And eventually, I knew that this was Tally, and we'd grow kind of closer and closer together over the years too. So kind of in progression, Brian and I were actually roommates our third year of vet school together. And I got to know her more and more as they were hanging out together, and apparently officially dating by this point, which I did not know initially. But kind of one of the things I remember the most about Brian too was pretty much every other day he would come home from grocery outlet with just bags and bags of food. Usually this was like 6 boxes of Reese's Puff cereal, and again, more and more candy. He also liked to get pretty much anything that was on sale. It didn't matter what it was, but as long as there was a lot of sugar in it and it was on sale, he would get it. But again, he would still offer to share this with you, no matter if you wanted it or not. And then kind of the sad thing was, Brian also developed a little bit of a coffee obsession this year. So he was already fueled by sugar, and then eventually started coffee. And what he learned was that there was something, I still don't know what it's called, but he would make espressos, so even more and more concentrated coffee. Tally and I would sit there, we'd make fun of his grocery outlet habits and his coffee drinking, and I kind of thought I had someone on my side in this situation. But the next thing I know, she bought him an even bigger espresso maker, and he got more caffeinated. Brian, that's a lot. All right, and so for those of you that know both of them, Brian especially has been a runner for many years now, and a ridiculous fast runner. I could never quite understand how he did it. And then, which again, maybe a little different than I remember, but Brian at one time asked me if I would teach him to swim because he wanted to learn how to be a triathlete. I've never taught anyone to swim before. We did a couple of sessions together. It didn't go so well, so maybe that's when Tally came into play and actually taught him how to swim. But he stuck with it, and eventually now they are both doing triathlons. Next thing I know too, as this triathlon obsession progressed, is our living room when we lived together just got filled with bike parts. And every day there was, hey, I found this new thing on Craigslist, let's go get this. And then there was just bike parts everywhere. And again, I thought this was Brian's weird obsession and no one else could possibly do this. But the next thing I know, Tally's got a bike in our living room too. And they both developed this bike obsession. But kind of to wrap this all up, I mean, if you were to ask anyone kind of their first impression of Brian, besides maybe being fueled off of sugar, it's just going to be how caring of a person that he really is. Honestly, I've never really known anyone that would just drop whatever they would do to help you out. He's just someone that truly cares about how you're doing, and again, someone that's really willing to share their candy with you. As I watched Brian and Tally grow closer together over the last couple years of vet school, it was obvious that these two were a perfect match for each other. I really could not be happier that they found each other, and I wish them many long years of marriage filled with many pets and many triathlons to come. Have a
To wrap up these